going on, wrestling fans? It is I, Steve Fall, and welcome to Tank Out. On today's edition, I am talking to the man who has a Netflix series coming out on September 13th, 2023. It's Al Snow. Al, how are you doing today?
If I were doing any better, Steve, I would be jealous of myself. It's pretty amazing.
Wow, jealous of yourself. I'm not sure that's possible because what you got going on right now is so much happening. Of course, OVW is being featured in a brand new docuseries on Netflix coming out September
Yes.
12th, this Wednesday, folks. This Wednesday, you can watch it. Now, explain to me before we dive into the Netflix
Mhm.
series and
Yeah.
showcasing OVW, let's explain to people who maybe are not familiar with OVW. What is OVW?
OVW is Ohio Valley Wrestling. It began, I think 1993. The original owner was Danny Davis, Nightmare Danny Davis, not the referee Danny Davis, but Nightmare Danny Davis. And he built the company, and here in the Ohio Valley region of Louisville, Kentucky, and he got a developmental program agreement with WWE that involved Jim Cornette. I'm sure everybody knows who that is, and they operated OVW, or Ohio Valley Wrestling, from I think 97, 98, under the developmental agreement, until about 2009. And because of that agreement and that relationship with WWE as a developmental program, turned out talent as Brock Lesnar, Batista, John Cena, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, um, uh, probably alumni wise, probably about close to 200 talent that took a significant role in WWE. A majority of those main eventing WrestleMania. Um, then the relationship with WWE came to an end. A short time later, Impact Wrestling created a developmental program and developed a partnership with OVW at that time, and developed stars like Jesse Goddard, and the list goes on as far as Impact is concerned. And then Impact, due to budget restrictions and things like that, they revamped and had to do cutbacks and ceased their developmental program. But OVW continued on, and in 2018, myself and a couple of other partners purchased OVW from Danny Davis, and I've been operating OVW ever since.
Very good. Now, obviously, the history is there, and now Wrestlers, the new docuseries, the creators of Last Chance You and Cheer are a part of this
Yes.
program. Now, for people who don't understand the significance of this, wrestling programs on Netflix, that is a huge opportunity for your brand, OVW, and of course, just yourself in general. How did this deal come together, and how long have you been filming this series?
Well, it was a 1 in a million chance. You know what I mean? Legitimately, just 1 in a million opportunity. Uh, because of COVID, myself and my other partners, we elected to bring in additional investors, and we sold a majority share of the company to those investors. And it just so happened that one of them, he and his wife, had went to school with a executive from BBC America, and literally one thing happened. She came into town. I mean, again, 1 million and 1 chance. She came into town for a wedding into Louisville, and they got to talking, and then another one of the owners started communicating with her. That led to speaking to Greg Whiteley, who was the director producer for the Netflix series, docuseries Last Chance U and Cheer, which did phenomenal, audience numbers, and won an Emmy, won several actual Emmys, and then next thing you know, I mean, it was about a 2-year process of let's wait and see what's going to happen. BBC America showed up, did a teaser tape, came back, left, and then we were greenlit to go. And Greg Whiteley and his crew showed up at the end of May last year and filmed through the end of August.
Wow. It seems like a lot of wrestling related programs are popping up on Netflix, Apple TV. Really, all channels seem to be grabbing onto wrestling for programming. Now, why do you think that is? Because if I go back 10 years ago, in my brain, I can't imagine wrestling docuseries or anything really being related to wrestling being on Netflix or Apple TV. Now it seems to be like popping up everywhere. What do you think that
Yeah,
attributes to?
I think wrestling has been, even though it's been the redheaded stepchild of entertainment for decades. I think that it's so ingrained in American pop culture, and it's so relatable, and especially when you peel back the curtain a little bit. Don't want to do it too much. You know what I mean? You want to give just enough, but not so much that because familiarity breeds contempt. So you don't want, your audience to become too familiar, but you want them to become familiar enough. And we live in a much more sophisticated time, and I think, we must take more sophisticated directions to garner our audience and make that connection um, with them. And I think these vehicles allow us to do it. So, it's just, it's such an incredible opportunity. I don't think there's been any other type of wrestling program on such a platform like Netflix, which has such an incredible reach. So, I'm really, really excited to see what we can do.
Yeah, I know they've tried to attempting putting like replays of certain things in certain places,
Mhm.
but it never really was, oh, we're going to commit to this. But it seems like obviously, if you're talking to executives at Netflix and they're putting the money forward and you're getting this awesome series coming out again September 13th, Wednesday on Netflix, which everyone has Netflix. And if you don't have Netflix, you know a friend who has Netflix, so borrow their password. And I know they're trying
Yeah.
to crack down on you right now, but I don't condone that. Please don't do that. But you want to do. So
Yeah.
I was reading articles about this series recently, and one question kept popping up was, do you think this series wrestlers will put the spotlight on some of the talent that is being trained at OVW that perhaps before no one ever heard of? Do you feel like that's going to happen?
All I can do is hope. I hope that this vehicle gives more relevancy and more exposure to OVW, and gives more relevancy and exposure to the talent that are in OVW, and then, those talent can potentially parlay this opportunity into, an opportunity on a much larger platform. And, if that happens, then I would be thrilled.
Now, the current talent in OVW, are they under contract? Or what's the gist of OVW's negotiations with talent? Because is it possible this Netflix series comes out on Wednesday and then boom,
Mhm.
Thursday, one of them is showing up on a different brand? Is that allowed? Like, what's the contract situation on that?
Well, it's certainly, I mean, I kind of operate things on a very old school manner in that sense. I mean, if you want to think of an old school thought process, and that is, as long as they, if they get an opportunity, I'm never going to hold them back from an opportunity to go and to expand and to be more prevalent. Okay. But, all I ask is that they do what we call within the wrestling business is that they return the favor. Okay. There's a big misnomer within the wrestling business of, oh, when I lose, I do a job. And I won't even get into that whole thing. But it's really, for us, it's called doing the favor. And the favor is always expected to be returned. And as long as they come to me and they go, look, I've got an opportunity, you know, and I'm going to give you 2 weeks notice or 3 or 4 weeks notice, then I'm going to give back. I'm going to, whatever everyone did to take a step back to put me over, I'm going to now give that back to them before I leave. Well, then that's fine. You know what I mean? There's no issue, there's no problem. And that's been a rule in the wrestling business for decades, not just, I didn't just make it up. So, they as long as they follow that rule and do so, I wish them nothing but the best.
Oh man, well I can't wait because like as a wrestling fan and just a member of the media, taking in anything like this that involves wrestling and Netflix and just extra exposure because for so long people didn't watch say like Monday Night Raw, but they knew who the Bella Twins were from Total Divas.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and that's like the thing with wrestling is maybe I don't watch wrestling. Oh, but I watched the docuseries Wrestlers on Netflix. Aha! So you do watch wrestling, and that's the thing I think with a lot of fans is someone's always watched wrestling once in their life, maybe long periods, short periods, but you've watched it. And I think this series right here is going to be I guess, the new launching pad, I think, for a lot of talent. And plus, where are your goals for OVW after this series? Because obviously this is going to put a lot more eyes on this. People who want to be trained by you see this and go, well, it worked for some people. It can work for me too.
Well, my hope is, going forward that, to kind of to your point, if you're an existing wrestling fan, I hope that it creates more of a understanding and more of a respect, and maybe gives you a little more insight as to just how challenging it is to really pursue a life and pursue the dreams and the goals of being a professional wrestler, and makes you appreciate performance in the ring a little bit more. If you're not a wrestling fan, my endeavor, my hope, my goal is that it will make you do those same things, but also maybe um, capture you, to where you now want to follow, if nothing else, the journey of the characters, that are on the show, and where do they go and what do they do, and ultimately makes you more of a wrestling fan that you never would have been in the first place, and thus helps expand the audience of wrestling to, as much to the market of Mr. and Mrs. Walmart as possible. Tough Enough did a wonderful job of that, initially in those first couple of seasons. And I'm looking and hoping that it will do the same. As far as OVW is concerned, I hope that it takes and raises OVW back to a level of prominence that it once held. It brings the talent to a level of prominence that the talent in OVW once held. I hope that it brings OVW back to a point of relevancy and an understanding of the necessity for an OVW to exist within the wrestling business, to allow for the continued existence of the business as a whole.
Now, you brought up earlier though that OVW is involved with the WWE. That relationship ended. Impact, financial issues, that relationship ended. Is there a chance, there are other organizations that exist right now who could use a league or just a place to put people so they can be properly trained versus just throwing them on television and hoping that they're going to succeed. Is there an opportunity there to work with other brands? In AEW's, for example, one is pops in my brain, but you have, NWA, you have New Japan. There's plenty of organizations that need the assistance that you can supply.
Oh, absolutely. There are, you know, there's an endless list of operations that are in existence right now that could utilize the services that we could provide and the experiences and that allow the talent to develop and get real in-ring knowledge in the situations that they need to be prepared for, without gaining necessarily the national exposure, be putting on a national stage, in a multitude of ways. I'm not going to, waste everybody's time in discussing that, but unquestionably, I mean, every organization, every major organization absolutely could benefit from, having a relationship with OVW. I'm not saying that because, I'm an owner and all of that. I'm saying that because of knowing the wrestling business and knowing what a talent needs to know and understand from a knowledge standpoint, which the only way you gain real knowledge is through experience, not through information. Everyone now assumes, because wrestling's become so ridiculously open, that, oh, I have access to information, so therefore I have real knowledge about the wrestling business. You've never done it. You've never been in it. You've never been a part of it. You've never actually taken an active role in especially in your in-ring performance, driving ticket sales business, being an attraction to, help feed your family. You have information which allows you to conjugate an opinion. You really don't have any real knowledge. And that's not saying that as a diss to people that are passionate and care about, professional wrestling and are very vocal about their opinions. But be aware, it's an opinion. It's not based off of real actual knowledge, because you don't have any actual real experience. And that's the one thing that OVW can supply, under direction, to allow for the development of talent to perform anywhere, and really have a better understanding, so that when they step on that bigger platform, that bigger stage, for that company, the initial investment is minimal. It's not what it would normally be. And, and they start to get a return on that talent pretty pretty quickly, pretty immediately. So, that's where, OVW, can fill a role with partnerships with other companies. Doesn't have to be just one, it can be multiple, um, and I'm hoping that, the exposure from Netflix and the increased relevancy of OVW will open some eyes, to show that still is a possibility and is still, still there.
Yeah, I definitely think that OVW is leveling up, and so much because of recent viral videos that have been posted on Twitter, which kind of skyrocketed, and now OVW on Netflix. I think just hearing that out loud, OVW on Netflix, is just enough to be like, oh, really? Because there's other companies that exist. I'm not knocking anybody, but some people don't
Yeah.
watch them because possibly they don't like the channel they're on, or their owner, or just interactions of talent on the internet. So all in all, I think, again, Wrestlers on Netflix, September 13th, Wednesday, it's going to be a great showing. So tune in, and I cannot wait. But, I want to ask you a couple questions about your past as
Sure.
well, because one of my favorite things of all time will always be your storyline with the Big Boss Man. So the hard question here is,
Yes.
Big Bossman storyline, great
Yes.
storyline. or greatest storyline?
Well, I would say that if, uh, and I'm not trying to, please understand, I'm not trying to shift the heat or, you know, disparage anybody. Just being, realistic and being honest. Um, if the company had not dropped the ball, um, I think it could have been, as far as relatability, I think that it could have been could have been a really amazing storyline. Yeah, I really think so. I think that, no one doesn't relate to having their, pet stolen, and then, something so cruel as being fed to them, but when you arrive at the payoff, when you've made the crux of the match, the story, the conflict that has to be resolved, the dogs, animals, and in every week, since I had heard the initial pitch, I was like, we're going to have highly trained, vocally commanded animals, in this scenario, and then when you arrive and there's multiple animals with multiple owners, that the company waited until that morning of the pay-per-view to contact a local veterinarian clinic to get owners of a particular breed of dogs that then went out and urinated, defecated, and fornicated, uh, and you couldn't even show them on the air nor interact with them. Well, then you've completely hamstrung, the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, that happened. But ultimately, for both myself and Ray Trailer, God bless his soul, Big Bossman, we were responsible for taking, crap and making shoe polish out of it. And that's the number one thing you got to do in wrestling. You got to, the show always goes on. And,
Even if
we,
dogs are having sex with each other at
even
ringside,
if
the show
dogs
still got to
are,
go on, right?
yeah, even if dogs are fornicating to the point where the owners are exchanging numbers and addresses for puppy rights in the back, yeah, the show must go on. So,
Oh
you know,
my.
you've always got to just take caca and make shoe polish.
Well, that was really nice shoe polish. They picked up with a baggie on their hand and picked it up. I enjoy it. Obviously you were knee deep in that and you were dealing with it, but
I
when
was knee deep in it. Yeah.
you're told one thing, something else happens. I could see being upset because honestly, as time still goes on, you think of vile things the big boss man did. First off, he took your pet. That's sad enough. Then he kills your pet. Ooh, that's sad. Then he feeds it to you. Oh my God. And then now on top of
Yeah.
that, that's your storyline. And then with Big Show, he shows up at Big Show's funeral, tries to drive away in the Blues Brothers car and
Yeah.
pull away a dead body. Like,
Dragging the coffin. Yeah.
dude, if you're talking about vile people who are characters in history of professional wrestling, not just
You can't,
what about movies? What about TV? You can't top that.
you can't get worse than that. You can't get worse than that. You literally kidnap a man's dog, then feed it to him, and then you show up and hook a chain to the coffin of his father, dead father, and yank it out with a car and drag it down the road. I mean, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, pretty damn terrible. But
Pretty terrible.
it's one of the greatest things ever. I don't care. That's why, like in wrestling, you can have a great match, but some people will forget that match eventually. You cannot forget storylines, especially the ones that you were involved with.
You can't forget who these people are, and you can't forget why you know they're trying to resolve the conflict.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that really is professional wrestling, is It's not what wrestlers do. It is what sells and motivates you to watch is, who these wrestlers are. And then you connect with them. You either identify with them or somebody that's like them that you don't like, and then, why, ultimately why, based on the conflict, do you want to see, a wrestler or one wrestler triumph, get justice over the other. And that's what's important, and that's what matters.
Yeah. I don't, again, I always love that storyline. But as you were talking, your background, I love so many things behind there. But if I'm looking at the top shelf, that's your
Yes.
action figure that was pulled, correct? Up the top, all the way up top.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm still I think I'm number 20, 22, I think now. I kind of moved down the list of things that Walmart won't sell for fear of safety of the community. Granted, Walmart will still sell a hunting rifle with ammo and a hunting knife, so you can, cut up your victim. They'll sell that. They won't sell my action figure. I was beat out by pregnant Barbie. She's number one because she's such a slut. You know what I mean? And just, you know, but I'm
Oh
I'm still
my.
on the list. I'm still on the list of things that Walmart considers that are unsafe to the community to sell.
That's insane because, doing research, I remember for action figures a long time ago, there was a wrestling ring that a company made that the poles were too big that when kids would fall over, which I'm not sure why they're falling over, it would impale them. So they
Well,
discontinued it. And so suddenly this ring is discontinued, but they make more rings that are just smaller, but they won't
yeah,
make more Al Snow action figures. That's
not with Head, no, because Head apparently, and I quote the assistant professor of communications at a college in Georgia. She determined, without doing, of course, any research or homework or anything else, that my action figure was a training manual for future spousal abusers. So I got to tell you, if you as a child are looking at my action figure and then as you grow up as an adult, you drive home and your wife's like, hey, I made macaroni and cheese. And you're like, Nancy, God bless it. Why did you do that? And you start punching your wife based off of your interaction with my action figure, I think you've got some other problems besides just my action figure. So just gonna
yeah.
go out on a limb.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that one. I'm no
Yeah,
therapist, but I'm going to predict that if you own an Al
yeah.
Snow action figure and you're doing that, that's not the reason.
It's not the action figure. You've got some other deep-seated issues. So
Wow. I remember even Hardcore Holly brought that up in a storyline where he's like, I can't tell my action figure because of you. And he's like blaming you. And I think that's
yeah,
one of the funniest things ever because if I'm correct, you two did have a match at St. Valentine's Day Massacre where someone almost drowned in a river, if I'm correct, right?
yeah. I decided it would be a good idea that the match would end up in the Mississippi River out back of the arena there, the pyramid, when it was an arena in Memphis. And it was February. It was very warm in the afternoon. Little did I realize that the water was a lot colder, a lot deeper, and was flowing a lot faster than I expected. And probably not one of my wisest decisions. So.
Oh man. Well, you're still here. Everyone's still
Yeah,
here,
thank God. Yeah,
thank God.
well, thanks to pre-planning, I threw a tire in the river that was on the bank, and Bob Holly sometimes would get a little verbose in his attempts to perform. Literally was dunking me and pulling me up, and dunking me and pulling me up. Which, if you read the real technique on drowning someone, was exactly that. And thank God I had put the tire out there to be able to grab it and go, huh, you're killing me. What are you doing? And then hit him as hard as I could to make him stop.
Well, you gotta do. You know, we don't
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you gotta survive somehow. You gotta survive because, as we continue on this conversation, when you were European champion and you
yeah.
were saying that you were from Greece, yes, you were dressed as John Travolta from Greece.
Right.
That is beautiful storytelling. Who came up with the idea of having you be from different places?
Brian Gewirtz, the head writer, came up with that idea that I would represent different European countries. And it kind of developed where, I was going to do different things for each country. And then I was always going to carry out a 8x10 of the prominent celebrity that was from that or part of that country. So, like one of the first ones was Germany, where I wore lederhosen and I carried a picture of David Hasselhoff, and I had a um, necklace of kielbasa that was around my neck. I took the kielbasa and took some of it and stuck it through the lederhosen, through the crotch, and walked up into Gorilla, and Vince McMahon looked at me and went, "No, take that out," and wouldn't let me go out on TV with that. And thank God, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I'd have probably gotten canceled yet again before cancel culture was a thing. And then, you know, Greece was, with coming out dressed like John Travolta, and the head was like Olivia and John, and I had soap on the rope and all of those things. It was just, it was to see if anyone would pick up on, you know, the jokes, or if they would go over people's heads. You know what I mean? And, Italy was with a fish, and Tony Danza, Transylvania was, I had a bat on my shoulder and dressed like, a vampire. And, I had a picture of Count Chocula. I had a box of Count Chocula, and just ridiculous things. But it's amazing to me that still to this day, like, I can't tell you the number of people that come up and remark about, that run with the European title, and, about, because they remember it and that they were so entertained by it. And quite honestly, like, the very first time I went out there, I felt ridiculous. I felt like I was being made to look like an ass.
Mm.
And, I learned a valuable lesson, because at that time, I decided, well, if I'm going to be made to look like an ass, I'm going to make myself look as much like an ass as possible. I'm just going to embrace it, and I'm going to, you know, go the limit. You know what I mean? And not hold back, not be self-conscious about it. And as a result, um, people still, remember it to this day.
Oh yeah.
And, that's very flattering. I mean, that, my first goals when I got in were very simple. They were, I wanted to be able to make a living, and a decent living, off wrestling.
Yeah.
I wanted to have moments in matches that people would remember, and ultimately, I wanted to create a name that would live beyond my career. That if you say Dusty Rhodes, if you say, any particular Terry Funk or any other names, and I'm not saying that I'm on their level by any means, but if you say Al Snow, you remember the name, you remember the person. And, I feel like I've accomplished all three of those goals.
I think you have.
So I feel like my career has been, in spite of a lot of mistakes along the way, I feel like my career has been pretty successful. So,
I 100% agree that, having a mannequin head is hard to forget, and I think, and so I would like to show you a picture. When I was a child, my father found out that you and Mankind were going to be in Worcester, Massachusetts. This is January like 1st.
Yeah.
And I found the picture. So here you are outside with head. It's very, but there you are, man. There you
Yeah.
are. And it's hilarious to think that you're coming out and there's security all around you and everyone's yelling, ow, ow, ow. And you get in the car and I run right up to the window and I just knocked on
Uh,
it a little bit. You looked right at me. You gave him this, shit grin smile and you posed for a picture like inside the car. And this is when you had a, flash. So I had to like, it was a disposable. So
yeah. Yeah.
take a
Yeah.
picture and hopefully it comes out. I wouldn't know. If I had a cell phone, I'd be like, bah, 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 take 50 of them and hopefully one came out. So creating a memory in my brain that will last a lifetime, including, of course, mannequin heads, dressing up from different locations, Kennel from Hell watching dogs fornicate in front of us. You'll never be forgotten. Maybe for the reasons
I
you
hope
didn't
not.
think, but
I don't care.
we will always remember you and the memories you created. And, my first introduction to you that I actually acknowledge is New Rockers, Leaf Cassidy.
Uh-huh.
And recently, Dark Side of the Ring did a whole episode on Marty Jannetty, and you were involved
Yeah.
as well. How do you feel like that Dark Side of the Ring treated Marty's career? Because I know a lot of people I've talked to about Dark Side of the Ring, they love it or they hate it.
Yeah. They're going to focus on the salacious, but I think they, by allowing me to be in there as well, I think, and Mike, one of the Texas Hangmen, I think we were allowed, it allowed us to shift the focus to the positive of Marty and, um, and try to help wrestling fans maybe, I don't know, gain better appreciation of Marty and more respect for Marty and his contributions, And I just don't think Marty gets the acknowledgement that he deserves, for his talent, his ability. I don't think he I don't think he gets the acknowledgement of from where he came to where he was, um, what he accomplished. And I think Marty's demons, which ultimately are only a threat to Marty. Do you know what I mean? Marty's only been his own worst enemy. He's never been, to where someone else suffers. Um, and I think, people focus on that more than they do on, all of the positives of Marty, and that's disappointing. It's a shame,
Yeah, because if you
it's
go
too
back
bad.
to watching the Rockers matches, Marty sticks out more than Shawn Michaels ever did.
Oh yeah,
And I don't
unquestionably.
I don't know where and how this barbershop incident happens. Was Marty rubbing people the wrong
Marty
way
wasn't
backstage? No
Marty
idea.
was Marty wasn't as astute backstage as Sean, and that really also plays a factor in the wrestling business. Not saying that it's wrong. I mean, it's the business. You know what I mean? And Marty wasn't astute backstage, and he was his own worst enemy. And if you look at this truly like a business, and where you're investing time, money, and effort into a performer, and the performer, is now unreliable, is a, you know, potentially a publicity hazard, etc. Well, it limits and changes your perception of what you can do, you know, with that performer, you know.
Yeah.
So the wrestling business, I say this all the time, the wrestling business is like every other business, and it's like no other business. For instance, if you get a franchise, a Jimmy John's franchise, your product or your sandwiches, all you have to do is you do the same thing we do in wrestling. You market your sandwiches. You're saying that your sandwiches better be good enough to where you can sell them. You know, that's it. In the wrestling business, human beings are your sandwiches, and your sandwiches have emotional issues. They have personality problems. They have egos. They have insecurities. They have neuroticism. They have egotism, narcissism, and they all have their own agendas. And you've got to manage all of those things, to motivate a paying public to want to see them, and in spite of themselves sometimes, you know, and um, and that's really the challenge. That's what makes professional wrestling different, and at the same time makes it so amazing because the more broken a person is, the more charismatic sometimes and the more connected they are with the audience.
That's true too. Yeah, I wonder if in today's world, if Marty existed starting now with the Rockers and so on and so forth, what would be the reaction to random slights in people's lives? Because it seems like in today's world, at least through Twitter, which isn't real, but they like to bring you down, but then they want to build you back up. And then maybe then they didn't have Marty wouldn't have the fan support he would have now because there would be a vocal group defending him, being like, well, he's a really great wrestler, because there are plenty of people who became superstars on top of the world who have done terrible things, but those were pushed down
True.
versus some other people who were, exposed, like
And not just in wrestling. I mean,
our life.
in all, just in, the entertainment, the public field, there are lots of people that are have a public identity that really, quite honestly, have done absolutely, and that's the thing with Marty. Marty's never done anything that is, the only person that's been victimized by Marty is Marty, but there have been people that are in the public identity that in all walks of life that have victimized other people and haven't been persecuted quite so much as Marty has, and I think Marty's an easy target, and it's too bad. It's disappointing,
Yeah.
that, yeah, it's just, and again, it's not because I have any bias, because I don't, you know, it's just being honest. Like, I really feel like Marty contributed more and was more of a star than people give him credit for.
Agreed. Agreed. One final thought about Marty though is I
Mm-hmm.
think as Marty Jannetty, if I was Marty Jannetty, and for a lifetime since the Rockers has been over, people say in any tag team that any exists, doesn't matter what tag team they are, they say who is Shawn Michaels and who's the Marty Jannetty. And I think if
True.
I was Marty Jannetty, that would make me feel I would feel depressed. I'd feel sad that they're comparing me to
Oh,
the lower half of a tag team. Like that would
yeah,
be detrimental.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean that, everything, as I've gotten older, I realize more and more everything is, the most valuable thing you have in life, more than anything else in your life. Not, your children, obviously, your family, obviously, but for you personally, the most valuable thing you have in life is your name. You have your legacy, and that is, you when I'm 60, so the clock's running down, so I'm not going to get more time to build another name or build another reputation or build, you know uh, perception, that I can leave behind, a legacy that I can leave behind. You get it and that's it. and it's got to be very disheartening and frustrating for Marty that, he's looked at as far as his legacy, like, well, you don't want to be the Marty Jannetty of the team. When really, quite honestly, if you really understood and knew what it was to perform, you would want to be the Marty Jannetty of the team, because without the Marty Jannetty of the team, there would be no Shawn Michaels, and that's too bad. I mean, it really is too bad, you know. And I talk about that, on the not, and quite honestly, not using this as a way to promote
No,
the Netflix series, but I talk about that quite a bit, about the fact that this is, and OVW is my name. It's my legacy. It's what I'm leaving behind. I'm, if 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 OVW succeeds, we all succeed. You know what I mean? If OVW fails, Al Snow fails. That's it. As far as the wrestling business is concerned, it's me, because I'm the guy. So I'm the guy that killed a territory, a company that has existed for 30 plus years once I took over, so it's kind of a stressful situation, to say the least.
I think
A lot of pressure.
OVW being on Netflix, though, Al, I think that is just a huge jump forward in general. Any extra eyeballs, especially Netflix being the #1 streaming platform, beating Disney
Yeah,
Plus and everything else. Like, you're on a brand that everyone knows. Though, speaking of legacy, one final question before I let you go is the
sure.
McMahon era of the WWE is officially over as this airs, because Endeavor Takeover comes into effect tomorrow as a recording. So technically, Vince McMahon is no longer fully in charge of his company. Now, for the wrestling business in general, your expertise running your own, what do you think is going through his brain, and what do you feel about this for the wrestling business and the WWE in general?
I don't know. I have a lot of mixed emotions, uh, I don't know. I mean, I really, okay. So a lot of people feel within the business, without, what I mean, that the wrestling business has changed, become something different. We're no longer selling the same thing, and the audience isn't buying a ticket to believe in those same things. Okay. In wrestling, I mean, there's been this big misnomer, for decades. It's all fake. It's all fake. I can assure you, okay, and I can, for anyone that's listening that's never done it or not been a part of it, there's only one thing that's fake, or not real, and that's the intent. The intent to win, not lose. That's all ultimately we're really selling. We're really only selling two things. We're selling who we are to you, that you can believe in who we are. Because if you believe in who we are, you'll believe in anything we do. And believing in our intent when we walk out to that ring, that we're coming out there and we're really trying to win. And if we don't win, there's a consequence to it. That has been prevalent and been center point in 1901, 1923, 1963, 1976, 1985, 2010, and 2023. An audience still only wants to believe in two precepts of the wrestling business. They want to believe in who these performers are, and they want to believe in why they're in the ring and that they're genuinely trying to resolve a conflict through a competitive situation. That's it. That hasn't changed. There's not an old or new school of thought, and there's a lot of people that subscribe to that, believe it, really preach it, you know, and here's the problem. If, wrestling's existed for decades in the pop culture, through from the 1900s to the 1920s, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It dipped in different places, different territories, went down, went up. It's always existed. When you intrinsically change what you're selling to your audience, no matter how you justify it, okay, it eventually your audience that's paying to buy, believe in that thing, no longer get what it is you're selling. They're no longer buying it. At some point, it ceases to exist. And I always use, like magic. Magic, we all know magic's not real. Okay. We, at some point, everybody has a zeitgeist, societal wise, realized they're not intrinsically altering reality or defying the laws of physics. What makes a magician successful? Their ability to allow you, the audience, even if it's just for the time that you're in the performance, you can believe or question what's going on. Okay. There was, I always go back to this, it was about 1962, I think, 61, somewhere in there. Kaminsky Park, it's a baseball stadium in Chicago. Friday night, had an event. It's a professional wrestling event. Pat O'Connor, Buddy Rogers, headlining main event, NWA World Title. 38,000 people attended this event, to watch Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor. Okay. What did they sell? They sold only who those wrestlers were and just the precept that it was a competitive situation and there was a consequence to the win or the loss. Saturday night, the very next night, they ran an event that drew 43,000 people. Now, I could be wrong on the exact total of the attendance, but not far off. 43,000 people to Kaminsky Park, a baseball stadium. And what was that event? It was roller derby. Roller derby doesn't exist anymore. And you know why it doesn't exist anymore? Because they started believing that they were smarter than the audience and they were no longer, they started thinking, well, we're not, the audience doesn't buy or believe all this other stuff, just the outcome. And they started changing intrinsically what it was they sold, and the audience didn't get what they paid to believe in. And therefore, roller derby no longer really genuinely on a scale that it used to exists. If we continue down the route that we are going with professional wrestling, inevitably we're going to do the same thing.
Wow. So you're underneath the impression that the WWE selling to Endeavor will create like a corporate environment versus the wrestling corporate environment.
No. It's the performers. You have to understand that at the end of the day, regardless of corporate structure and all of that, the one thing, again, what did I say? The wrestling business is like every other business, and it's like no other business, right?
Yep.
Jimmy John's, you market your sandwiches. In wrestling, you market your wrestlers. Your sandwiches that are the wrestlers have their own thoughts, their own ideas. Here's the thing, as a promoter, I create a platform. That's all I do. I create a platform to advertise, promote my wrestlers. My wrestlers, the minute they walk through this curtain, it's their responsibility to make themselves a star and attraction. I don't care how they go about doing it. All I care is that they do it. Okay. What's an audience wanting to believe, pay, to forget about? If you're the average person, you have a wife, you have two kids, you go to, and we're the only live event that literally we're in 2023 and it still costs $10 a ticket to go watch. I mean, let's be honest, you know, it's still $40 for an average family, right? Doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, right? When you really think about it, especially if you're single, $40, I'll spend that at the bar, but for that husband with his wife and his kids, and now he's going to have to get concessions. That's another $30. He's going to have to get some merch. He might spend $100. Well, now he wants, you know what he wants? He wants to sit and forget and believe that the wins and the losses really matter. And he can believe in who these people really are, to the point to where he can forget for a moment he's going to have to pay the power bill late because he wanted to take his wife and kids to wrestling.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. That's the truth. That he doesn't care about the quality of the match. He doesn't care about, work rate or any of all this other BS that these people come up with. He wants to just forget about his everyday life and live vicariously through everyone that's in the ring. And he wants to care whether or not they win or lose. Because without caring whether they win or lose, he doesn't care about anything else, and he wants to believe so that it makes it worth it for him to forget that now he's going to have to pay the power bill late because he spent the money to come and do this. And we've kind of forgotten that. We've kind of departed from that. Say what they want, but that ultimately is what we've done. And the vast majority of people inside the wrestling business, the talent themselves, no longer perform for that husband that's bringing his wife and kids. They perform for each other, and they try to impress each other. And the more that they pursue that and try to impress each other or some fan, because ultimately that's what they are, just a fan who is writing a report and a critical appraisal of what they did, the more they perform for those select people, the less we're going to garner that audience of the guy who just wants to come out and forget for 2 hours. He just wants to forget all his stresses and his troubles. He wants to believe that he could be a guy in the ring kicking somebody's ass, and getting justice.
Man, always wise words from Al Snow, but daily your jokes on Twitter always pop me good because I'm like, damn, where'd he come up with that? Where'd he get that one from? Like, is he writing these? Is he looking them up? let's jump onto that subject for a second, because I gotta say, your
Sure.
words about Endeavor and the WWE could open up. We could be here for 3, 4, 7 hours talking about
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
integral nuances of professional wrestling. Is it a brand? Are we selling a brand? Are we selling individuals? All in all, is the world might change, but it may not change at all. So who cares? But all in all, your jokes on Twitter are killing me. Who's coming up with them? Is it all you? Don't expose the
No,
business.
I would wish it was all me. I get sent some, I see some, and then some I come up with on my own. So usually the ones about my wife, Jessica, usually are the ones I come up with. So
Well, they are outstanding. Some people tweet the same things every day, but you, my friend, tweet something new every day. Oh my God. I don't know. The other day was one about you being naked, and I was laughing so frigging hard. I think it was about mowing your lawn, and your neighbor was
oh yeah,
upset
and the
with you.
neighbors, and then yeah, Jessica's like, I was like, well, the neighbors are upset at mowing my lawn. She goes, they probably think I married you for my money, married you for your money. So I was,
Oh yeah, there are some good ones out there. I believe there was one. They're like, "Oh, I'm upset with you because you're mowing your lawn too early in the morning." And it turns out because you had new pants on, and I was like, "God damn you, Al Snow!" Hilarious as always, and so informative, just like this Wednesday, because I have some information for you. Netflix Wednesday, this Wednesday, folks, September 13th, whenever you listen to this, 2023, Netflix has a series about OVW Al Snow's baby. Check it out, because it's going to be something that allows the wrestling fans like myself to get a little peek behind that curtain. I know we
yeah,
all want it, but I don't want it ever to be ripped open. I just want a peek. I just want to see a
just peek.
little peek. I think I've seen too
It's
much
kind of
over the
like
years.
it's like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I tell everyone all the time. It's Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Everything's magic until they pull the curtain back and there's a short old man pulling levers and twisting knobs and the wizard's gone. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, as a
And
child,
then you find out that it's all political and it's all about control and power and it has nothing to do with magic.
Uh, yeah, and that's why the picture of me showing you when I was a child running up to you, believing that you were actually talking to a mannequin head, was a better life than it is now for me, being able to talk to my heroes, but also going to find out more information as a child. Johnny Gonzalez, I thought he was a giant.
Yeah.
I thought Kamala lived in the jungle. I thought the wild Samoans were actually wild.
But
All
how
these
much
little
fun was that?
things. You
How
know, it
much fun was
it
that?
was outstanding.
Yeah.
But I the problem I think with that is wearing 2023 glasses, looking at like 1993 wrestling, is I wish you could still be like that. But like anything in the world, it moves forward and things change, and sometimes we don't like change. And
Yeah, I agree.
I'll believe now that wrestlers come out and they try to sell me on something. We all immediately roll our eyes because we're like, "Oh, I'm too smart for that." But in reality, we shouldn't be feeling that way at all, because I go to a wrestling event, a lot of them. I travel around the world for these things, and I'm there as
Yeah.
an adult covering them as press. In front of me, there's a young child, as you brought up, the dad, the mom, the two kids. Do you think that kid gives a shit what the ticket gate was? How much money was made that night? Did one arena sell out? You know what he's there for?
Mm,
To have a blast. Hold up
to
his
believe,
Charlotte Flair sign, hold up the sign, and praying to God his favorite wins. Yeah, believing. And I think that is
believing.
lost in some realm, because maybe adults just don't want to believe like Peter Pan
They
once did.
do. You
They,
just have to do it in a more sophisticated manner. That's all.
man,
And you can make everyone in anything.
true.
I mean, look at the government. I mean, let's face it. So,
Hell, I don't want to be tranquilized and brought into a basement with you and tortured. So we're going to wrap it up so we don't end up somewhere being tortured by whatever side you believe in, because
right.
they're
Yeah.
probably both working together in
Yeah,
general.
they are. They
They
are.
are, folks. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Two wings on the same bird.
Exactly. How do you think one looks better than the other? Well, you compete against the other side. Oh my.
Oh, yeah.
Is that so hard to believe? Good guys versus bad guys? Which side are you on?
Such a work.
Dude, life is a work, except every day is an adventure when I get to talk to Al Snow about his amazing Netflix series coming out this Wednesday, Wrestlers. I am pumped. You're pumped. We're all pumped. Al, thank you again
I
for
am.
being here on 10 Count. It has been a
Thank you,
pleasure
Steve. I
talking to
really
you.
appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad we got the chance to catch up.
Me too. And hopefully we can get you off that Walmart list and get some more Al Snow
Oh,
action figures
yeah.
inside the damn store.
Yes,
Ah.
I'm looking forward to the day that I can walk back in Walmart and not feel oppressed.
Hold your head up high when you go in that $5 DVD bin and pull
Yes.
out Heavyweights, which is a great movie with starring Ben Stiller. But I've been Seafall. He's Al Snow. Have a great day, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.